All right, all right, all right. Let's get started. Here we are with episode number 62 in our ongoing, this weekly series of expressions. We've done a couple of expressions so far. This is one of, I guess you would say, what kind of expression is that? I don't know. It's like joyful glee, right? Potentially. I think so. All right. Let's go ahead and get started on some color mixing. We're going to mix up his flesh tone here. Let me get a brush handy. This is an Escoda Modernista brush, ones we use all the time. And I actually don't have any of my linseed oil poured out, so I'm going to use this little tray. And I'm going to get this stuff right here. And pour me just a little bit. Just a tiny little bit in this lid to help me through this painting, okay? And we'll put that right there. And I can dip into that whenever I need to. Just to get my brush ready to go, I'll demonstrate a little linseed oil. We're going to palette that linseed oil into the bristles of the brush. We want to make sure they're saturated with the oil, okay? And the reason you do that, or the reason I do that, is so that whenever I put paint on there, it doesn't go to the interior of the brush and stay there. So I can have it more or less on the outside. It comes off of the brush much easier on the panel. All right. I'm glad to have you here today. Thanks for joining me. Let's get this mixed up real well. See how pink it is? Maybe we add a little bit of yellow to bring in some warmth to it. Some orange, potentially. A little orange. A little more white. This will give us more of a peach color that we're looking for. And just to tone that peach down some, we touch into that cerulean blue. And that gives us a little more of a natural flesh tone that's not so colorful, not so vibrant. Let's take a look. We can see how much lighter it is. We can add a little red, maybe a little raw umber. There we go. Get a little closer, I think. We can kind of see where it might match up on his face. I still feel like that's a little too colorful, so. But he's a colorful guy, so maybe if we have it a little extra chromatic, we might have to just go with it. I'm not scared. Let's see. That's a little closer. A little closer. I think we can work with this. Maybe just dull it down a little bit. When we add white to it, that's going to reduce the chroma of your color a lot. It's going to take the color out of there. So let's see if we can get this forehead in here for our episode number 62. Okay. Let's look at the angle of that forehead and how it comes down. We're just going to fill it in. I feel like it's still a little redder than what I got, but we're just going to go with it. Let's give a little bit of shadow on this side. All right. Oh yeah, I have a special treat. Check it out. We're doing this section. right here, right now. Okay? See how we have that shape? We're going to do this. I realized that I have these little markers that I've been using for this thing here, and I can use them to kind of show you what I'm thinking in my head if my words are not good enough. Potentially, they are insufficient for a lot of people that, you know, maybe just work differently. Look at this little edge down here, okay? Right? That's basically this color there. Paint that in. And we're going to make this whole section one. See how there's like a dividing line right here? We're going to make that whole section, okay? We could probably bring it all the way down, you know, into the neck. So do something like this, okay? Let's try that. So we have that curve. Let's make our straight line. Fill it in. Let's see about this portion here, right? Look at how it continues down like this. Then it swoops over this way towards his collar. And this comes right off his neck. All right. So our brush strokes kind of indicate our shape there. We can also even just get a little color to indicate the face. Let's do the other side now. That's going to be basically the same curve right here. And then we fill it in with dark, right? Not your darkest dark. Don't get carried away. You just want to make it fairly dark, all right? Get his eyes in there. Maybe they're right here somewhere, okay? Let's get a little bit of this lighter color for this section right here. Still darker than this, though. All right. Let's get a little red, maybe. We can add in. Oops. Let's get that darker. A little red, maybe add in right here along the neck. We could bring that little section down. And there we go. We got a basic idea of how to block that in. Let's do our magic eraser pen thing here. Yeah, I just realized I could do that. I think that's going to be a powerful tool to help visualize how to break these things down into really simple sort of shapes, okay? All right. Let's do his hair now. Okay. I appreciate you being here and watching me scribble on iPads and paint with some oils. Hopefully you get some good information out of it. All right, let's darken in this wonderful mullet the gentleman has. He was, you know, he might still be governor of Texas one day. You never know. Getting some dark for the hair. Notice that I haven't really tried to clean my brush or use any solvents or anything like that. It's because we're working with middle tones, we can get a lot of our ideas down very quickly and easily. And from here we can start sculpting the face out. Right? I think in the 70s this guy was like, I mean, in this movie, it was a movie in the 70s. What's it called? Fast Time, or no, I forget what it's called. But you know the movie. Alright, let's look at where his eyebrows are, right? See how they go up? Make this little section right here. And bring us to our little triangle that we have there. And this other eyebrow. See how they're almost in a line with one another? Keep them in that line, okay? And like I said, just paint the eye sockets in. You don't necessarily have to worry about the eyes or anything right now. Let's get some lighter color. We're going to go right around the orbital. You can almost see where the skin is stretched tight over this portion of his brow ridge right there. So let's lighten all that up. Maybe even grab a little bit of yellow and some of the blue to make it a really dull light color. So not very chromatic, more like a grayed out sort of a flesh tone, if you know what I mean. You dig? All right. Here we go. Now we're talking. Circle around there. We'll add red up on top here. Let's go ahead and bring that little highlight down some. Right about there. Maybe it comes up into this region. Let's get this highlight in there too. A little bit underneath the eyes right in there. Then on this side, we want to use some lighter color, but not very light. We want to still keep it very shadowy over there. All right, so we just make it slightly lighter. Wipe our brush off so we can pick up some dark. Another reason we can use darks and then lights and then darks is because we added some of that linseed oil into our brush ahead of time. Let's look at this shadow now, right? Look at how it makes a nice little zigzaggy kind of a shape as it moves across the face, right? Let's try doing the same thing. Making some zigzaggy kind of lines there. A little bit of blue. Help darken it up a little bit. That's the ultramarine blue. So the colors I have from left to right are going to be ivory black, ultramarine blue, raw umber, perylene red, cerulean blue, Hansa yellow, and titanium white, as well as a nice hot fresh cup of coffee. All right, let's see what else we can get done here. We got to add his mouth in there. And let's look at this little shadow underneath his jaw and his chin here. It's kind of a gray color. So I'm going to use my cerulean blue to dull down that flesh tone so that I can have a nice, easy color that's going to work well with that. And it'll look blue. That cerulean blue is not very strong, but it grays the flesh tone enough to make it appear blue. All right. Let's go ahead and get some more of this dark. Look at this section right here we want to darken up. Maybe a little of that ultramarine blue. I appreciate it. All the likes you got. You're the best. You are the best. Thank you. Let's darken up this stuff right in here. All right. We want to keep his eyebrow in there. I think I blended it out when I added my light colors, so let's put that back. Let's get a little bit of this and we'll paint across the form. Oops, sorry. The microphone. with my brush. All right. I'll start blocking in those cheeks, and then we can get the mouth. That's going to make the big difference. Look at that little red spot right underneath that eye section. The eye socket, I should say. There we go. Let's get a little bit more of that pink. Maybe we'll paint down the temple right here. Could start fine-tuning some of these shapes that we see in there. Maybe even darkening up some stuff too. There we go. A little redder, a little more raw umber for this before we move on, because we want our skull to be basically painted in before we move ahead too far. Let's get some teeth in there. Where are those teeth at? Right about there, I would say. Let's just paint our teeth in. More or less where we think they're going to go. Maybe like that, maybe. Yeah, potentially. We'll see. We shall see. Let's start working on areas like our eyes and that kind of thing. Just to get our skull ready for some features. All right? Look at this little angle that we have here. Look at that. Little forehead piece fixed up. All right, see this little cheek crease right there? Let's look where that's aimed at. So that's going to help us with the form of our skull, okay? See it aimed up at the eyebrow here? So we want that line in there. Look at this one. It's aimed out here. Okay. We have this kind of already in there. That looks pretty good. I think that's fine. Let's go ahead and get a little indication of some nose, maybe. Maybe even a little mustache. A little more mustache. All right. I think we can darken that eye socket just a little before we move on to a smaller brush. So let's try it. Let's see what we can do. A little redder, I think. That's better. Redder is better. Redder is better. All right. At least in this situation. All right. Get that cheek. Let's get a little orange going here. There you go. Oh my goodness. My little dude fell down. He didn't make it. There you go. He gets replaced. That's what happens when the head guy falls. There's always someone right there ready to take their place. All right, let's get our brush all wiped off. Maybe smooth some of these paint strokes out because they're kind of everywhere, right? Let's see what we can do. Soften some of them up, blend them into each other. Fuse all these colors together so that they look a little more natural. Our goal right now is to make something that kind of looks like a human, okay? So that's what we're after. Paint across the form on that nose, okay? Like this. That'll help us kind of sculpt it out a little better. Give us a better idea of the shape of it, you know? All right, look. Can't forget about that little highlight right there. We got to make sure we leave it in there. Oops, that's pretty bright. Let's get some shadows going. I think that looks all right for this. We could probably move to a smaller brush, but I really like trying to do as much as I can with this brush before I move to a smaller one. Maybe the area where the teeth are going to go right here. Or not the teeth, but the tongue. Teeth will be slightly higher there. All right, let's get some of that flesh for the side of his mouth here, right there. Look at the space we have between our little angle that we put there just a minute ago and the edge of the face or the mouth. A little red on top here. We could probably do that with a smaller brush too. And let's just get his eyes kind of put in there, right? Just to see where they might go. Look at the space from the eyes to the eyebrow. And just darken a spot where the eyes are going to go. Right? Just darken a spot where they're going to go. Look at how far away it is and make a good judgment call. Right? Maybe even do both of them at the same time. Also pay attention to the area around where you're painting, right? Like this temple region and that kind of stuff. All right, let's go ahead and switch to a smaller brush. This was the number 14. Can't really read it anymore, but that's what it said. All right. Now we're going to use the number 10. These are brights, right? It's like a flat brush, and we use it to sculpt out our face. And this one we use to kind of sculpt out our features, right? So now this smaller one we'll be able to get a little of our linseed oil that we have right here. And let's start finding some correct values, okay? Let's get some dark with our smaller brush. A little bit of red in there. Reach over, have a sip of coffee. All right. Let's continue. Let's get this eye section painted in. Make sure we get that just right. So it comes down this direction. There's a little dark spot right around here. And we got to follow the nose down just a little bit. Look at how far it comes. It's not very far down, all right? So don't make the nose too far, especially when they have their head tilted. See where the ear is? Normally the ear is going to be in line with the nose, but because he's got his head tilted back a little bit, he's got a kind of a different sort of a placement of features. So that's why you got to be careful if you're using one of those like this kind of a thing, you know, where you do the eyes and the mouth and everything. That doesn't really apply if the person has got their head turned in one way or another. So you have to account for that. Just be aware. Be aware. That's why we do it like this. So we don't have to think about that. We just have some fun. Look at this little highlight right next to the shadow where it changes direction on the tip of the nose. Let's just paint that in. Maybe this little section right here too. Get that in there. Let's darken those cheeks. Just a little bit. with some pink, a little pink on the cheeks. You know, that always works good. Just paint it all the way across and then up. See how those subtle little changes make the face, right? They shape the face out. Let's get some more of this deeper color for this area above the cheek. Let's look at that shape, see if we can get it in there. See how it travels up the nose right here. And down and over a little bit, so you're kind of, triangulating some things the whole time, keeping the overall structure of the face in your head. Features are a lot of fun, and they are one of those things that changes a lot, so you're never going to really be able to identify someone on their features alone. I mean, someone that has a really distinct, eye, that's one thing. But your eyes change a lot. They glance around, they squint, they get tired. Sometimes they get puffy. So eyes change a lot. Noses change a lot as well. Your noses, they tend to get flared out when you're excited, right? Look at his nostrils there. They're more flattened out because of his smile. So things like the mouth, the nose, and the eyes that people normally really work on to get exactly right is they're sometimes aiming in the wrong place, if you know what I mean. Sometimes you got to just look at the form of the whole picture. The skull, the overall shape, that's really going to matter more than anything. All right, let's keep going here. With our smaller brush, we're just trying to get the middle tones and shape out our features, okay? Yes. We can see kind of where our nose has the nostril. We can imagine it at this point, right? So let's imagine that nostril right in there. A little darker, potentially. A little bit darker, so let's darken it up some. Darken that as well. Probably can get that dark spot in his mouth. Let's touch into the black. The blackest of the black. And it comes out gray. Let's get some more black. There you go. That'll be good for now. Let's get a little red for that tongue in there. And then we'll highlight a little bit of pink over it and it should look good, but kind of have a smaller brush to do some of that. But I think we did pretty good with this big brush, painting, doing some dental work and stuff. Let's get the lips painted in here. We may need to paint across the form for those. Just like so. Let's get the underside of that sculpted in. So I know it's looks like a little messy. Sometimes it's more important to get the overall flow of something more than it is to get the exact sort of shape and everything. You can get away with a lot with expressing a feeling in a painting or a portrait, People see it more. Keep these darks nice and dark here. All right, all right, all right. The Matthew McConaughey. See if we can get this area sculpted out right. We're going to try to get the eyelids in there, more or less just the shape of the eyeball. How it's surrounded by that eye socket. We want to get the darks and the lights and where they go. This eyelid has a dark side and a light side, kind of like our palette. We always set the palette up with the left and the right from dark to light. That helps us keep track of our colors and our values. So we know everything in the middle is going to be, middle tones. Everything on the outside will be lighter, very light, lightest to darker. So if we work right here, that's like these darks. We know that to make any sort of impact, we're going to need to move our brush over this direction. And now we'll be able to get a little darker. We can even touch into the black. I think it's about that time. Let's get some black in the mix. Keep it red though, because everything in there is very red. Right? Painting on down the line here. We did have a nice dark cast shadow. Let's put that back in there. That's from the nose. There's another one of those really dark little cast shadows right there. And maybe in here too. Right at the back of the eyelid. Paint that whole section right there, okay? Let's move this dark down. There we go. Just soften some of those paint strokes up so there's not globs of paint sitting on your panel there. I'm painting on a wooden MDF panel. It's basically some stuff you can get from your hardware store, and I just paint it gray with some gesso in there. Just some gray gesso. All right. Continue lightening this guy up here. There's the light spot on this side of his mouth. It's catching the light very brightly. Let's get our brush wiped off. Let's see if we can get the dark of the iris in there, maybe. And to fix our eyelid, we got a little rambunctious with that fella. Highlight this other side of that. We got a little shadow under his eye. Let's see if we can get that before we need a smaller brush here. I think we can get pretty far with these, You probably do the whole painting with something like this. But we're gonna see what we can do with all the tools that we got. Let's darken this little eye socket up just a little bit. Get some of this lighter color for the eyelid, right? About there. There we go. See if I can get my middle tones on the nostril or the bridge of the nose, rather. So I want it very orange. Now that I'm using just the corner of my brush, I know it's time for me to get to something smaller. Let's just do a little bit more. I know I'm stubborn. I should just pick up the smaller brush, but I think this is going to work out for a little longer. All right. Let's get this curvature down here. All right. And we could probably darken the hair up a lot, so let's do that. Let's wipe our brush off real well. Get it nice and clean. We could even get some linseed oil and then palette the brush to get all of that color out of it. This is how you would clean it if you absolutely had to clean it and pick some other color up. Right? Just get a little linseed oil, palette the brush off to the side, and then just wipe it on your paper towel. You'll have a nice clean brush ready to pick up a nice dark. Get some linseed oil back in it. Pick up some black, maybe just a little bit of red. Just a little bit of that red. So we want that dark right there. We could shape the neck out as well, because we have this dark color there. Trying to look at this where it points at his eye right here. Okay. All right. That looks okay. Let me get a little white so I can do some on his t-shirt here. Let's get a little more gray in that. A little bit better. A little bit better. All right. I'll pick up some nice, clean white color for this side here. Let's get some of these Goldilocks going right here. Let's get a little lighter, yellow and white. Let's move right over here somewhere. We don't want it super yellow or nothing. We just want it to feel like that, like that's a nice yellow. Nice highlight color for that blonde hair. There we go. Use the yellow and white together and just kind of pull a little red or maybe some sort of a brown into it, and that helps with the blonde hair. But really, blonde hair is like one of those enigmas. If it's like in like a forest situation, it'll be more green. And yeah. Likewise with the ocean, you know. Look at where that dark shadow is on the hair, kind of how it comes down. About even with where the nose is, okay? We could get it a little darker, so let's try it. A little black. There we go. I feel better about that already. Let's see if I can get his eye painted back in there, kind of. So now this brush has blocked in all of our forms of our features. And now we can use a smaller brush to, let's get this section first before I lose my thought. Now we can get a smaller brush to start adding a little more work into those areas of the features that we just laid out. Let's get this little edge down here. A little lighter. Yeah, I think that'll work. Let's just soften that up. Drag our brush across it. Nice way. Let's get the plumpness of our cheek back in there because we did sort of sharpen it up a little bit too much. There we go. And one quick little crease of the shadow. I think we could do it with this brush. That little dimple that he's got right here. Red and black. A little dimple there. All right. Okay. Let's move on to a smaller brush. Now we're going to sculpt out some more details with this one. This is a number 6. It's the same kind. It's a bright, has a little flat end on it. The difference between the bright and the flat is the length of the bristles. And it seems like I've run out of coffee. All good things. All right. Tell you what. Let's go ahead and do the gentleman's teeth. So I'm going to get a little bit of this cerulean blue with the white, and I'm going to make me some teeth color over here. The reason I'm going to use the cerulean blue is because they're a little, maybe a little greenish, maybe a little cooler, but I'm just going to fill them in like one solid sort of object. At least on this part. And then they're going to be a little darker on this side, you see. So I'll get a little more of the cerulean blue over here. Let's see. Let's just look at where they're aimed at, okay? See that angle? I want to make sure I don't have my teeth being vampire teeth or something like that, you know. So you sort of picture these as one solid thing, one solid row of something. Corn kernels or whatever. Whatever you want to imagine it to be, honestly. It could be whatever. But as long as it's an even thing. Let's get the shape. See how we have this little angle down here? Let's look at where it's aimed. Put that in there. Make those quick decisions. It's quick decisions. They always work best. Let's look at the eye, okay? Let's crease that up a little bit. Let's look where this eye is. It looks like it falls right at the edge of the mouth and to the inside of this. So we can darken that up. Just darken it a little. We don't have to try to paint in anything fancy. Let's see if we can do the lips a little better now that we've sort of established where we want our lips to land. Just inside of this little crease here. Kind of where we have them already. So we didn't do too bad. Not too bad at all, if I do say so myself. Let's go ahead and darken the other side of the mouth. There's a really light spot there. And now let's darken it up. A little darker. That's probably okay. I think we might have a little corner of darkness right in here. You might have to get a smaller brush for that, and that's okay. Let's do some work on the nose. The nose. Yeah, I think he would be a cool governor, right? He'd be a cool governor, man. I mean, look at him. He's governor material right there. All right. Let's go ahead and continue darkening our shadow edge. That's what I'm working on now, the little darkest edge of the nose. Paint down along it here, and then we're going to add in our bright color on the inside of that shadow edge. So something like that red and the yellow together. It's like peanut butter and chocolate, man. I mean, it's just perfect for this. So let's see what we could do. Make sure our palette aren't brush off so we don't leave big old layers of paint on there. So that bright orange I want right at the edge of my shadow. All along here, okay? I would like it at the edge of the shadow that you paint in as well. I know, Layla. I know. I'm asking a lot. Because all on those areas where you have the light kind of fading out into the shadow there, just before it goes into darkness right here, it always just has one last hurrah. It shows you a little color before it goes into darkness. A little brightness over here on this side, right around the chin area. I'm going to get some of this greenish, kind of blue, gray kind of a color going for this region under his 5 o'clock shadow, I suppose. The 5 o'clock shadow. Yeah, so I think we actually doing pretty nice on this guy. Layla is over there. Sounds like she's going to have a heart attack or something. She must have eaten something in the yard and now it's messing her stomach up. Poor thing. Yeah, I don't know. Sometimes you can't do nothing but feel bad for them. Let's get some of this hair placed into the right area here. Make it come down correctly. Just over that edge of his eyebrow. And then disappearing into the darkness. All right, let's sculpt out some work around his eyes since we've done some pretty decent work with the mouth so far. Let's see what we can do with those eyes. Let's get some of our lighter color and let's just highlight this little area around the actual eye. The bag under his eye right here, let's get the right angle, okay? We want to look at where it's at in relation to this other piece up here. And there's a little lighter pink spot at the top of that, the top eyelid, upper eyelid. Shade this side of it. Let's get a little bit of that red, some raw umber. That makes a good flesh color shade, you know. Pretty good. I think that's all right. Get a little bit of this shadow. It comes down near his eyebrow there. All right. Let's work on this side a little bit. Let's get that little pop of color just before it dies right here. All right. Put your vibrancy in there. Make sure it's nice and bright. That's where you can add your color, okay? Make sure you add your color. Let's get a little bit more of this orange for the side of the cheek right here. Maybe a little redder. A little redder still, potentially. I think that's all right. Now let's get some black for this shadow that's right here. Black and raw umber. You'll have red already in your brush, so that'll tint the color as well. So you're trying to be very efficient. All right? Very efficient. That's a good color. Very efficient. Oops. As I drop brushes. Let's see about getting the eyelid shaded in. Let's try and shade in this other eyelid as well. He's got some sclera in there. That's the white part of the eye, but we're going to have to get that with the smaller brush. With the smaller brush. All right, let's see. These paint strokes kind of look like hair on his eyebrows, so that works out nice. Let's see if we can get the septum. We missed that part. That's the little separation part between the nostrils. Call it a septum. I wonder why. I wonder where that word comes from. Probably Greek, like every other word. Or Spanish. From the god Septus. It's the first in the galaxy to have his septum pierced. All right. Maybe not. Let's get the highlight right here along that little crease. You see how it starts about right there, right at the beginning of his eye as well. Let's see if we get that green color going. There we go. That felt nice, actually. Sometimes these paintings, like have like a tactile effect on you. You can feel them. It's really interesting. At least I can anyway. I'm sure that when you do it yourself, like you'll have the same sort of sensation. Nice. All right. I think we're pretty good. Let me do a little more right here, and then we'll get a smaller brush to do the details. The deets. A little bit more. That looks pretty good, though. Get this little edge lightened up. Just blend it right in, make it disappear right there. Let's look at this dark color that's right here. It's a transition color. So let's mix up a transition color. Like that looks pretty good right there. So we're going to place it right here. That looks all right. I think to do any more detail up here, we would need a smaller brush. Little bit smaller brush. All right. Let's go ahead and get to that smaller brush now. I think it's about that time. Get some of this done first. Tell you, I love working with these larger brushes. All right, let's go ahead and move on now. We got the next up is number 2, Escoda Modernista, the round this time, the round brush. This is going to do all our real fine details in there. You know what I'm saying? Maybe we'll figure out, do some kind of cool background with him. I don't know. We'll see what we could do. Get this thing paletted up. Get some linseed oil inside of this brush. All right. Wipe it off real good. Let's start doing some of the sclera first so we can get that going. Let's just paint the corner where the white of the eye goes. Maybe it's not quite that white. Let's add a little bit of that cerulean blue to tone it down a little bit. That looks better to me. Let's do some on this side too. All right. That's not bad. Let's start working on the nostrils. That's really the next tiniest thing. Well, actually, some of the very, very dark darks with this are necessary. So let's see what we could do. Right in here, got some very dark darks. There's a little nook of dark right there. Let's get some real dark color for that eyelash area. The shadow that his eyelid makes is very dark, almost black. It even comes off of the eye just a little bit. This little corner too. Very dark. All right, see, so now we're working with our very darkest darks. And we're adding in the stuff that's really gonna make it pop, as they say. As the young kids say these days. Let's go ahead and sculpt back our septum and our other nostril in here. Come around the nostril on this side, and looks like the top of the nostril is darker than the bottom because of a reflected light. So we shade that in like so. Cool. Let's get a little linseed oil. We're going to palette the brush so that we get all the dark out of there. All the dark out. Wipe it off with our paper towel. Let's grab some light colored stuff. Maybe we want to do a pink highlight here and there. That's going to go mainly right here. It's a little duller. I don't think it's that bright. There we go. See how that color is still lighter than everything else around it there? So that tells you it's going to work in certain areas, right? Like it'll work right here real well as a highlight. And look, it's not nearly white. Okay, so we'll paint it in a pretty wide little area. And then I'll come back and do a very exact highlight. Layla, you okay, girl? What's your problem? Why are you breathing so heavy? Tripping me out, dog. All right. Let's get these other highlights going. Definitely going to have to let her out. Oh, I said it out loud. Now she's going to really let me know. I should have spelled it O-U-T. You know what I'm saying? Bless you. It's my dog, Layla. Let's lighten up those areas around the eye. I want to make sure there's some good contrast in there, you know? You want to go outside or what? All right. Let me take her outside real quick. 1 second, you guys. Come on, lady. This way. Go potty. Good girl. All right. She'll be barking whenever it's time to come back inside, you know. Whenever she's ready. She's probably didn't even need to use the restroom, more than likely. She just wanted to go out there and check it out. She's like, oh yeah, man, far out, dude. All right. Let's continue on down. We worked on that little area here last, so I think we need to move into the mouthful region. The mouthful region of Mr. Matthew McConaughey. Matthew's mouth. Let's get a little darker. There we go. I feel that's pretty good. Let's get it pretty dark for this other side right here. Let's look at where that lands in relation to his eye. Okay. There we go. Put that little mark in there. And we can bring that shadow underneath his tooth, you see. If we want to, we can paint molars in. Get as detailed as you want with this stuff. I particularly do not get that detailed with these. But you can if you want. But you can if you want. Let's get some red. I'm going to do that corner of the eye because it just looks a little unfinished to me. Because it is unfinished. I guess that's why it looks that way. Let me darken it up and then it'll be closer to being finished. Is it, when is a painting really, truly ever finished? We can get all philosophical, I suppose. All right. Let's get back to the mouth. Back to the mouthal region. Finish this fella up. Getting a little red for that tongue right on this backside here. Let's get the lips painted in for the bottom part here. Kind of have an idea where they're at already from our previous work. So we just have to highlight and shade some spots to make them really stand out. We don't necessarily have to do a lot of work, okay? We just have to make it look good. Let's put that little blingy highlight right there. Go. And looks like we've got a little blingy highlight right here too, and across the front of the chin. Let's see what we could do to lighten up that forehead area. A little lighter even. There you go. Remember, we could put a little tiny highlight on the nose. Let's see what we could do there. A little tiny blue. Oh, there's Layla, as if on cue. It's like I have seen what I needed to see outside. I'm ready to come inside. Giving him some shiny eyes here. And let's see about getting this little area highlighted a little bit. And his mustache. I can't forget about that. Can't forget about that. Yeah, that's looking good. It's such a funny character too. All right, let's bring all that mustache out to the side here. And gotta add my little highlight back in there, but that'll be no problem. All right, darken the lip right here so we can see the crispy edge of it. The crispy edge, and he's got like a little meat on the corner of his mouth that we need to show too. And then this little highlight of flesh that follows that crease right here. Fine tuning, y'all, fine tuning. Let's get a little deeper color for that crease while we're here. So some red. And our little pop of color right at the edge, okay? Little pop of color, can't forget about that. Our cheek. Let's get the bottom of our jaw kind of area right here. Start really combining these paint strokes into a recognizable, form. Let's get a little deeper color for that crease, just at the very darkest, furthest part. So, like right here. A little darker. All right. All right. Let's get a little bit of highlights here and there, and then I'm going to do some background. Some background on him. Let's highlight those little locks of hair where they exist. Maybe some of this. Let's see. Uh-oh. That was a serious bark. That wasn't like a let me in a minute. That was like a I'm going to tell mom. And I can't have that. Can't have that. Let's get some little highlights, just some white. Some very bright little white highlights right at the corners of the teeth, okay? Right where we see them. We're not painting individual teeth. We're just painting the little blings that we see in there. There's even some across the bottom here. Like one or two. All right, let me let Layla in. And then we're going to do background, okay? Don't go anywhere. Make sure, use this time to call a friend. Tell him to watch. Come on, Layla. Where are you at? Layla, this door, baby. Come on. Get inside. Come on. Oh, Layla. All right. Well, I guess she found something else that was interesting to her. Anyway, let's go ahead and do the background on this. Oh my goodness. Dropped some stuff. I should have picked it up before I sat down. All right. Let me see. You got any green paint? Would be a lot cooler if you did. Woo! Man, that was good. That was good. You know what, bro? Just so happens, I know a guy. Look at that. Just so happens I know a guy. Yeah, so we like to paint, or I like to paint with, I say we because I think it's just you and me here. But anyway, I like to, oh no, you probably paint a little differently than I do. But I like to use primary colors when I'm doing these instructionals because I think it's important to know how to get the color that you need as opposed to like how to get it from the store. Because, I've been seeing a lot of videos lately about Payne's Gray, right? Like this color has been discovered by people all of a sudden. But Payne's Gray is really just like ivory black, a little bit of ultramarine blue, and white. I mean, you can make that color. And you can make it whatever tint and shade and whatever you want. It's really interesting when you do stuff like that. Yeah, man, the green was a great idea, bro. Fantastic idea, in fact. All kind of green colors we can do. Oh, you know what? You guys, today was the last day for those green folks to really be able to appreciate it here in Texas. They just outlawed the green in Texas today. It's against law out here now. There's a new sheriff in town. So, no more of that. Sorry, y'all. You gonna have to just, do whatever y'all was doing before. All right, let's go ahead and finish his coat, or his shirt, actually. There we go. Get it painted in there nicely. Let's get his flesh back. There we go. Let's get a little light for this portion of his throat. Maybe highlight the cranium a little bit. Be a lot cooler if you did. Man, that was a good one. That was a good one, I gotta say. Oh, shoot. Y'all are the best. You guys are awesome. Let's see if I can do that without making it look like he's got a hickey, right? All right. Okay. Pick my green back up so I can get that little section. There we go. Get some red and some flesh color. Mix up that stuff for some dark on my hair right here. There we go. We can pick up just the black and the ultramarine for some of this last dark stuff that we got here. Oh, there we go. I think we got a pretty good sketch for the night. What do you guys think? He's all right. That's funny. All right. Anyhow, we're going to go ahead and call it a night right here. Tomorrow night we have one more of our expressions, and then we're going to take Thursday night off like always. So let's go ahead and agree to meet up tomorrow night at 9 o'clock for another episode of Late Night Paint with Mike. And make sure you tell a friend, because, that helps me. It helps me. Even if you guys don't really think so, it really does. So I appreciate everything that you do, even the likes, the comments, everything. No matter what kind of comment it is, I appreciate it. It all works. All right. So anyway, much love and respect. I appreciate you guys. I will see you tomorrow at 9 p.m. Let me go get my dog. Y'all have a good night. Thanks.